Now that Colorado has legalized marijuana for recreational use, interesting cases are arising involving individuals who have used marijuana and have blamed crimes that they have committed on the consumption of the drug. Case in point, a man by the name of Richard Kirk who shot and killed his own wife back in 2014. Now, he has pled guilty or not guilty to shooting his wife by reasons of insanity. And he says that he experienced a psychotic episode as a result of ingesting edible marijuana, okay, or an edible laced with THC, I should say. So after the Denver father of 3 allegedly murdered Kristine Kirk, he asked their 7-year-old son to do it, saying it would allow mom and dad to be together with God. Now that's allegedly what happened, and it shows that he wasn't in the right state of mind. This case is really interesting because he's now suing the marijuana manufacturer, the person or the company that manufactured that edible, and also the dispensary that sold that product for not properly labeling the product and indicating what the potential risks could be. Now, there's evidence that could work in his favor. There's evidence that certainly works against him. But what's important to keep in mind that there are high stakes because this could hinder marijuana legalization throughout the country, depending on how the case plays out.
So he's making an argument that the anti-drug people love. Like, we told you this is going to cause you to kill people and reefer madness and all of that. I am, unsurprisingly, enormously skeptical, even though I actually have fairly extreme reaction to edibles. I've talked about it in the post game for the members. In the last one we talked about as recently as a couple of days ago, I said that when I was listening on my headphones to music on a plane, I couldn't help but dance, and I had to go to the bathroom to dance. Okay, so believe me, it trips me out.
Yeah.
But in the midst of all of that, in the biggest trips I've ever had, right? I never want to commit violence against someone. That doesn't occur to me at all, right?
Yes.
So perhaps what's in you is also very, very relevant, right? So it's your predisposition. Yes, that matters. Obviously, the drug itself can matter to some degree, but I'm very skeptical that it matters to that degree.
So let me just preface everything that I'm about to say with the fact that there are several factors that could play a role that we don't have information about right now. So for instance, is this an individual who is predisposed to having psychotic episodes? Did he take any other type of drug as he was ingesting, that product? So for instance, there was something that I read about how he might have taken a painkiller. That has not been confirmed, okay? But could that have played a role in the way that he acted? Was there any violence in their relationship prior to this happening? So those are all things that we don't have all the details on. But here's what we do have the details on. First, there's some evidence that works in his favor. So according to the Daily Beast, the fatal shooting came at the end of a 12-minute call between Kristine Kirk, the victim, and police, one in which she told a dispatcher that her husband of 15 years was totally hallucinating. His wife's family agrees with her alleged killer and is suing the edible seller and maker for failing to put adequate warnings on the candy. So I think it's telling that the victim's family is siding with the person who killed their daughter, But nonetheless, there's also evidence against him. For instance, in his blood, the researchers found 2.3 nanograms of THC. That's the psychoactive ingredient in cannabis. The amount, as one doctor noted in court, is relatively small, less than half the legal limit to drive in Colorado. Now, with that said, there's also an issue with the way researchers can measure the amount of THC in your system. There are problems with it. It's not foolproof, okay? So keep that in mind. In the complaint filed on behalf of Kirk's kids, lawyers from the 2 firms representing them present medical literature and testimony from doctors who confirm that cannabis can in fact induce psychosis. Another doctor suggested that Kirk was vulnerable to distortions in thinking, but concluded that his personality was not consistent with a violent or aggressive individual. The final doctor confirmed that THC was found in Kirk's blood and said that video evidence from after the murder confirmed that he was demonstrating delusional and tangential thinking. Now, here's another thing to also keep in mind. It's very important. Although there have been some studies in the past indicating that if you're predisposed to having psychotic episodes, marijuana could trigger it, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a positive link between psychosis and violence, okay? In fact, numerous studies have indicated that marijuana has a link to a decrease in violence. So the science is not necessarily on his side.
So again, I'll go to my experience here. My experience is anecdotal. It is not conclusive, and this is a tough case. But you generally go with what's in your head. And so have I had tangential thinking when I was high on edibles? Yes, right? Once I thought I was swimming in a river of hazelnuts. The whole river was made of hazelnut. And that was lovely, right? Another time I was stressed out, and I thought the colors green and red were attacking me. Okay, these are all in post games I've discussed before. tytnetwork.com/join to become a member to get the post games. Anyway, but never did I have a thought that I wouldn't otherwise have. Like, you know, you see what I'm saying? Like, it might have been extraordinary, and there might have been golden doors and all these different things that are going on. And yes, you're tripping, right? But I never thought that I would do something that I was extraordinary. That was not already a notion that I already had. Like the idea that I would hit anyone,
right,
let alone shoot my wife. No way, not remotely close. Again, yes, it's anecdotal and it might affect different people in different ways. But at the end of the day, it seems a little convenient that this guy winds up killing his wife and goes, oh, the drugs made me do it. And I'm going to sue the drug makers. I wasn't in the right mind.
Yeah, so
I don't think it quite works that way.
So first of all, let's talk a little bit about precedent and how substance manufacturers have been treated in the past when there have been cases of people who have been murdered. Alcohol does have a positive link to violence, and there have been cases, like many cases. Sorry to sound like Trump. I don't have the exact statistics.
Tremendous amount of cases.
A tremendous amount of cases.
We're not winning with alcohol anymore.
Where alcohol led to a violent episode between a couple, whether they're married or not, and then there was violence to the point where someone got killed, right? Do the alcohol manufacturers get prosecuted for that?
Never.
No, they don't. So why is it that marijuana manufacturers get treated differently? I'm not saying that I don't want these products to be labeled, and I'm not saying that it's impossible that edibles don't lead to psychosis or do lead to psychosis. I'm just saying that we need to be consistent with the way we treat manufacturers. Another thing I want to say real quick, Cenk, is I've experienced hallucinations on edibles as well. I think edibles are, I'm not going to say dangerous, but they have a much stronger impact on you than smoking marijuana, okay? So as a result, I don't know what could happen to someone who's predisposed to psychotic episodes. Maybe it could lead to them being violent. The important thing is you need to have more studies on this. And the reason why we don't have more studies on this at the moment is because historically in the United States, researchers have been unable to study marijuana, okay? It's becoming a little more easy, but in the past, it's been almost impossible.
That's because they call it a Schedule I drug that they claim cannot possibly have any positive effects.
Right.
Which is a preposterous thing to claim. And we already know that Nixon and his advisors on the record have admitted that they knew that wasn't the case. They just did the war on drugs to target their political opponents, blacks and liberals, right? But we're still having a conversation about how it's a Schedule I drug, and we can't even do research on it. Look, we're pro-science and pro-facts on the show. So you want to do research on whether it could have an effect like that? Of course you should do that research. But in the meanwhile, don't fearmonger on it. The number of assaults, let alone murders that have happened on alcohol is countless. In the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, probably in the millions, right? But nobody's going around suing Budweiser over it.
Exactly.
So let's just keep it real here, study it, and that case is a difficult one, and then we'll see what happens in courts, right? But whatever you do, don't buy into the hysteria.
And one final thing that I think you guys should absolutely know about, there have been a number of friends of the victim who have said that they were having severe relationship issues prior to this murder, okay? In the weeks before the killing, Kristine had reportedly told a coworker that her husband had cursed angrily and that it left her feeling afraid. Other friends told police that Kirk had been verbally abusive to Kristine and had redirected his paycheck out of their joint account into his own separate one. Another friend of the couple told detectives that Kirk had asked if he could stay at his house, which he reportedly declined. They were having financial issues. I don't know if that's enough evidence to indicate that he would have acted violently as a result of that, but this is the testimony at hand.
Right. And look, that's for the jury to decide. And just because you're having marital trouble doesn't mean that you're going to kill your wife, right? At the same time, if I'm on the jury and somebody comes at me with marijuana made me do it, I'm a little skeptical.